first of all, I suppose I have two things. I say I'm on the graveyard shift before lunch, so it's kind of hard to come in just before lunch, especially on such a nice day, so I'll try and be as short as possible. I'd like to think that my session is practical, although it's inside here. Never would like to be outside because it's deal with coaching. I suppose the other thing is I feel grossly overdressed here now. Normally I would be in a tracksuit on a Saturday. I've been asked to talk about coaching within a club by Connor. So I felt, when I looked at it, I said, first thing I have to do is throw in the word games. Because I think you can't have coaching without games. I was watching Tony and his usual Bible himself out there, and he emphasised the importance of games in training or in an overall programme for the year. I don't think you can have one without the other. So my discussion today, or my session is basically, it'll be about 15-20 minutes, maybe hopefully I'll get away like the other two speakers with no questions. But it's really to do with what I think coaching and games, the involvement within a club. The areas I would see, and each of those probably would be nearly a workshop topic in their own right. First of all, the basic principles of a good coaching programme. It's very important before we design any programme that we know what the principles are and what should be embedded in it, that we know what we should be doing and how to do it. The second one, the beginners and nursery section, might be other names on it as well. I would see this is crucial to the coaching programme within any club, and I spend a little bit of time on it. It would be a hobby horse of mine. I think it's not a coincidence that the successful clubs operate very well down at the beginner section. The importance of the club-school link, very important as well to a club in today's world. Any coaching programme, you have to have your rules and code of behaviour, whether it is on the field or off the field, whether it is players, whether it is mentors, whether it is clubmen or whatever. Having a proper coaching structure within your club. I feel I'm heavily involved in my own club back home, and I think we all get caught up in today's world between trying to field teams, trying to fundraise, trying to develop physical facilities, and we forget at times about the coaching structure. And sometimes it's at the whim of the guy who gets the team, who decides maybe to go off and do a coaching course himself. So I think it's very important that the club should look at its coaching structure. A season plan is very important in today's world. It's important that we can plan, it's important that we can tell the children who are going to play with us or the adults who are going to play with us what's going to happen for the year. Sometimes very difficult within the GAA, particularly at adult level, to plan our season. Care of players. Like, I suppose in terms of there's three issues here. There's the game, there's the player, and there's the coach. For me, the most important person is the player. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes the coach becomes the most important person. Sometimes the game becomes more important, to win at all costs. But really we have to look after our players if we want to continue playing with us. And then, your overall club administration and support and planning. It's not a coincidence that the successful teams on the club are equally well structured and well organised, so that the guys who are good at coaching can get on with coaching. So I'm going to just briefly touch on all of these areas, give you maybe, from my experience, I'd like to think maybe that I'm giving you from two fronts. First of all, I work full-time with the Munster Council. I'm 9 years as games manager, and with Pat O'Shea we cover Munster, and we'll be heavily involved in this area. And secondly, I'd like to think I'm talking to the volunteer like yourselves, where if I wasn't here today I'd be up with the 6, 7, 8 and 9s of my own club down in South Waterford City, and coaching, helping get organised, etc. So I'd like to think I'd be giving you just basically my experience from two fronts, from a professional and from a volunteer. In terms of the basic principles that underpin any good club coaching programme, what I would see crucial is recruiting children and developing an interest in Gaelic games. We can no longer take it for granted that children are going to come in and play with us. There are other codes out there. Apart from other codes, there are other attractions, and we don't have the monopoly we had before. So I think it's very important that part of your club coaching programme has to look at how we're going to get children inside and how we're going to develop an interest in the game. Okay, the lads that play, the adults that play, their children are naturally going to play. But what about all the other people who have moved into the parish or into the house who might have no background in it? How are we going to get them in? So that's an important, I think, very important part of your coaching programme. Developing a love of our games and making sure that they will continue to play it and continue to support it. Understanding the reason why the children play. It might be the reasons we think, it might be the reasons we play it. You know, for instance, one of the big ones is children play because they want to have fun. Children play because they want to have games, they don't want to be sitting on the line. So it's very important that we realise why children come to play if we want to develop a coaching program. It's not centred purely around their ideals. Making sure that all activities are age appropriate. You know, more often than not, a lot of coaches think that children are mini versions of adults. We come down after coaching an adult team and we're going to do a similar version with children. You know, it's very important that the activities are age appropriate. And with this in mind, in recent years, the GAA developed the Go Games model. Now, in times it's much maligned, but if people sit down and look at it and study it in depth, like it's really the way forward. Because what you're trying to do is get the children to play at the level they're capable of playing, and move them on slowly till eventually they're playing in a 15-a-side game in the positions maybe and try to develop the positions. But up to that, we need to get them to play at the level that they're able to play at. Now within a coaching session, that can be quite difficult. Making sure that activities challenge all ability levels. It's not easy. You go to the field, you have 20, 25, 30 children. You might be on your own. More often, hopefully, you'll have some assistance. I was at a meeting with my own club the other night and we were discussing this. Like, how do you keep the guy who's on the verge of a development squad, was good enough to be playing inter-county, and then the player who's barely able to hit the ball or able to kick the ball, but you're going to need to field your team or you're going to need to keep going. How do you conduct a session that involves all of them? It can be quite difficult at times. So that needs a little bit of planning, a bit of thought. I definitely think that if you can have coaches and assistants or 2 or 3 people at it, it makes it a little bit easier because you can split them on ability. You know, one of the suggestions we had was maybe, particularly with the smaller group, is that you have station training. We all know what station training is, and we move around. But if you can split your players some way on ability levels, you can change the level you're going to operate at each station to meet the group that are coming into you. But it's not an easy thing to do, to try and keep everyone happy. And we all know that players and children love to be challenged. Ensuring the children experience all playing positions, particularly at an early age. You know, people say, some of the people who object to the Go Games model would often say that this notion of everyone stopping the game and switching around and that. That's particularly at the younger ages. As they move on, I would firmly believe you can allow them to settle to a certain extent. But the one thing is, what has happened heretofore is if your father played cornerback for the club, you're going to be a good cornerback. If your father played full forward or your brother played full forward, all of a sudden you're compared to him and you're thrown him full forward at the age of 10 or 11 and left there for the rest of your life. It's very important that children get an opportunity, even in terms of developing their own game. Like, you know, a lot of coaches would believe the goalie should be made play out the field for some of the training sessions. Leave him develop his game as well. Developing fundamental movement skills. You know, it's probably a thing we took for granted for years. And I see in the world we live in today with the Xbox and with the television and with all the other things, children don't have the basic movement skills they had before. I suppose basically you don't see guys robbing orchards, running away from being chased as much as possible as was heretofore. I've seen some children who struggle to climb over a gate, and yet we expect them to go out and play our games we took for granted. I know the Ulster Council are very much to the forefront in developing fundamental skills, and Terence McWilliams in particular had a programme. And it's crucial because if you think of it, sometimes we're asking them to strike a ball on the run or to kick on the run when they're not able to run properly. Or ask them to jump and catch a high ball when they're not able to jump properly. So in terms of your coaching programme, we should be particularly starting from an early age developing fundamental movement skills. Now you can use that and you can introduce skills at the same time. Developing the basic skills of the game. In the end of that's what we're all about. There's no shortcut to success. I've yet to see a team win a serious championship that's not skillful. You might say that other attributes brought them over the line, but in the end of the day, that's the one that's going to win for you. Because if you think of all the other ones, whether it's physical fitness or whether it's psychological or mental preparation, most teams can level out. But if you haven't got the basic skills coming through, you're going to find it very hard to rectify it. Making sure the children have fun, and making sure the children and coaches want to come back. They're what I see as really the basic principles underlying any coaching program. Key to any coaching program within your club is the nursery or beginner section. I think it's the most important section within your club. How often will you hear an inter-county player on television or wherever refer to so-and-so who trained him when he was a young lad? How did I get to the top? Well, so-and-so started me off. You know, I suppose heretofore, as an association, we were probably spoiled with the religious orders and with the national teachers, primary school teachers and that. Going back maybe 20, 30 years ago, all the clubs done was provide jerseys at under 12, under 14. But we never actually sat and thought, how did these players all of a sudden become good players? Now the onus is back on the club. And taking a player from the time he comes in the gate, 5 or 6, to the stage when he's going to play matches, whether it's under 12, in mini leagues or moving on to the before championship. That's huge. The workload in that area, I firmly believe, is huge. And it's not a coincidence that the clubs that are successful operate well at this area. The clubs that are winning championships, if that's what we want to measure, and it's another thing maybe I should have said at the start, your coaching it's very hard to measure coaching. Very hard. Only one team wins the championship. So it's very hard one to measure. But in the end of the day, like the clubs that are successful at this area will definitely